Christmas Eve, 1974. Darwin, Northern Territory. Population approximately 47,000. The wet season had arrived, the humidity suffocating. Children had gone to bed with presents waiting under trees. Adults sat with the stillness of Christmas Eve in the tropics, ceiling fans turning, the night thick and ordinary. The Bureau had tracked Tracy since it formed in the Arafura Sea on December 20th. It had weakened, expected to miss Darwin. On December 24th evening, the forecast was still reassuring. At 10 p.m., Tracy changed direction. By midnight, the outer bands were hitting Darwin. By 2 a.m., the eye wall was over the city. Winds reached a recorded 217 kilometers per hour before the anemometer at Darwin Airport was destroyed, meaning the actual peak was higher, and nobody knows by how much. By dawn on Christmas morning, Darwin was gone. 71 people were dead. 40,000 were homeless in hours. The city was destroyed not by war, not by earthquake, but by a cyclone the forecast had not predicted landfall for. This video is not about the storm. It is about what happened after, the decisions made, the information withheld, the evacuation survivors describe as traumatic, and why the official account of Tracy still feels incomplete to those who lived through it. Stay with me. Number 1 is something never fully addressed, not by the government in power, not by any government since, and not by the official commemoration. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And let's begin. Darwin in 1974 was a frontier city, a colonial outpost since 1869, bombed more than any other Australian city in World War II, mid-building boom under Whitlam investment, young and extraordinarily multicultural. The city Tracy destroyed was becoming something. The city rebuilt was a different place. Understanding what happened requires understanding the official record is not the only story. These are the 12 things nobody fully talks about. Number 12. The forecast that failed. The Bureau's tracking of Tracy was, in retrospect, inadequate, not incompetence, but the limits of 1974 technology and a culture around communicating uncertainty. Tracy had been inconsistent, weakened, appeared to be tracking away. Meteorologists worked with sparse data and limited computational capacity. The models could not resolve the rapid intensification and direction change Tracy executed on December 24th. The final advisory before landfall did not convey the level of danger Darwin actually faced. The language reflected a culture prioritizing avoidance of panic. The priority was understandable. In retrospect, it was wrong. After Tracy, the Bureau reformed its forecasting methodology and communication, including clearly conveying uncertainty and worst-case scenarios. The forecast failure of December 24th is documented, and it set everything else in motion. Number 11. The death toll that has never been settled. The official toll is 71, the figure in the historical record, the commemorations, the curriculum. The questions concern two populations whose deaths may not be fully counted. The first is Darwin's Aboriginal population. In 1974, communities included town dwellers and people on the urban fringe with limited connection to official emergency infrastructure. Death recording there was not as thorough as in non-Indigenous suburbs. Researchers have identified individuals present before Tracy and absent afterward, with no documented deaths. The second is the maritime population. Darwin Harbour held many vessels, fishing boats, recreational craft, pearling fleet, with crew aboard. The accounting that night was not comprehensive. Several vessels were sunk or swept out to sea, their crews absent from any official record. 71 has been official since 1975. The actual number is, by careful assessment, higher. Number 10. The media blackout. In the days after Tracy, the government decided what information to release, under genuine emergency conditions, destroyed infrastructure, and legitimate concerns about accuracy. But it went beyond managing uncertainty. Journalists attempting to enter Darwin describe being actively prevented. The first images reaching the public were delayed and curated. The full scale of suffering was not available in real time. Gough Whitlam's government, under Emergency Minister Ted Willis, controlled the information flow with a directness documented since. The justification was practical, protecting evacuation security and preventing panic. The effect: the public did not fully understand what happened until the evacuation was substantially complete and the government was ready to tell its own story. What would have happened had Australians seen the full reality in real time? Unanswerable. What is certain? The decision to manage information was deliberate. Number 9. The evacuation's cost. The evacuation of Darwin was, by any operational measure, extraordinary. Approximately 35,000 people, virtually the entire surviving population, were moved to southern cities, mostly by RAAF aircraft, in Australia's largest peacetime evacuation. The achievement was genuine, and the evacuation traumatised a significant proportion of the people it saved. This is documented in oral histories. People had little time to gather belongings, many were not told where they were going, and families were separated, sometimes for weeks, because the evacuation prioritised efficiency over keeping groups together. People arrived with the clothes they wore, no money, no documentation, no idea where family had been sent. Darwin's Aboriginal communities experienced the evacuation differently again. The infrastructure prioritised the non-Indigenous population, reflecting the social hierarchies of the territory in 1974. The people who evacuated were saved, and many were also, by the evacuation itself, additionally traumatised. Number 8. Reconstruction, the community that did not come back. Darwin, after Tracy, was rebuilt for a different city, one the planners and government had decided should be different. Reconstruction was conducted under the Darwin Reconstruction Commission, established within days, with extraordinary powers to acquire land, demolish structures, and determine what was rebuilt. The Commission built a better physical city, cyclone-resistant construction standards that have demonstrably reduced damage since, upgraded infrastructure, rational planning. But it also shaped who would return. Housing prioritised in reconstruction was designed for skilled workers, public servants, and professionals the government wanted to attract, while housing for Darwin's lower income, transient, Aboriginal town camper, and working class community was not fully replaced. Approximately 10,000 of the 35,000 evacuees never returned. In many cases, the people whose housing had been lowest in the reconstruction's priorities. The rebuilt Darwin was better built. It was not the same city. Number 7. The Aboriginal experience the official account leaves out. The official story is primarily about Darwin's non-Indigenous community, not a deliberate omission, but a reflection of how record-keeping and media were organised, leaving the Aboriginal experience captured mainly in oral histories. Darwin in 1974 had a significant Aboriginal population, including the Larrakia people, whose country Darwin is built on, and people from across the territory drawn by work, family, medical care, or colonisation's displacement. Town camps were particularly vulnerable, housing was not cyclone-proofed, and inhabitants received less warning. Their evacuation lacked the same resources or urgency. After Tracy, many Aboriginal residents were returned to home communities rather than housed in Darwin during Reconstruction, framed as culturally appropriate, but it also left them absent from the process that shaped the rebuilt city. The Larrakia people watched the city built on their country be destroyed and rebuilt without their ownership or meaningful control of either process. Number 6. The Whitlam government's political decisions. Gough Whitlam's Labor government was in its second year when Tracy struck. The territory had been central to his agenda: Aboriginal land rights, self-determination, infrastructure investment, and Tracy struck a city the government was actively investing in. Whitlam's decisions were made under genuine emergency pressure and good intentions, and also by politicians, in a political context, with political consequences. The media management described earlier was political. The speed and scale of the Commonwealth response, military deployment, the Reconstruction Commission, resources committed, was genuinely impressive and reflected understanding of the political stakes. But some decisions reflected political priorities too. Researchers note the rebuilt Darwin reflected Labor's vision of a modern, professional territory capital more than the community that had been there before, possibly the right long-term vision, but also imposed on a community with limited capacity to advocate otherwise. Whitlam visited Darwin on December 26. The visit was genuine and the emotion real, and also a political statement. The politics and the genuine response coexisted. Number 5. The psychological legacy. The psychological consequences of Tracy were not well understood in 1974. PTSD did not exist as a clinical diagnosis until 1980. People who lost everything, were evacuated in chaos, separated from family for weeks, and returned to a destroyed city were not offered systematic psychological support, because that understanding did not yet fully exist. Research in subsequent decades has documented elevated rates of depression, anxiety, and trauma-related disorders persisting decades after. The Christmas anniversary effect, a disaster's psychological impact on a date otherwise universally positive, is documented in the survivor experience. Many describe a changed relationship with Christmas persisting 50 years. The children who were there that night are now in their 50s and 60s. Research shows specific long-term patterns, intrusive memories, altered risk perception, a different relationship with cyclone warnings. Tracy's psychological legacy is as real as its physical one, but far less visible. Number 4. The sound of Tracy. Cyclone Tracy is unique among Australian disasters in having a specific sonic record. The ABC's Bill Bunbury recorded audio of Tracy making landfall, held in the archives and played in documentaries since. What it captures is not the sound of wind as most people imagine it. Survivors consistently describe the sound in terms beyond wind, the freight train comparison, but also a quality difficult to articulate, a frequency felt in the body as much as heard, a roaring containing something like pressure or intention. People that night describe it as unlike anything before or since. This is not mysticism. A Category 4 cyclone's acoustic characteristics include infrasound, frequencies below human hearing, perceived physically, documented to produce dread and unease. Survivors describing something beyond wind may be describing a physiological response their vocabulary lacked words for. What is certain? The sound of Tracy remains, for those who heard it, one of the most powerful memories of that night, never rebuilt over. Number 3. Commemorating a disaster on Christmas Day. Every December 25th, Darwin commemorates Tracy, the siren at 3 a.m., memorial services, community gatherings. For a city destroyed on Christmas morning, the annual re-encounter is unavoidable, with no parallel for any other Australian city or disaster. The day of maximum cultural pressure toward celebration is also the day of maximum memorial weight. Survivors describe how children's excitement and presents under the tree coexist with the 3 a.m. siren and the knowledge of what the date means. For the majority of Darwin's current population, who arrived after Tracy, Christmas has a quality different from elsewhere, not primarily traumatic, but never entirely free of what December 25th means here. The commemoration is important, and, for some survivors, annually re-traumatizing, as the ritual that honors the dead also reactivates the memories of that night. Number 2. Lessons learned and lessons not. Tracy produced genuine, lasting improvements to emergency management, building standards, forecasting, and disaster response infrastructure. Cyclone-resistant construction has reduced damage in subsequent events. The Bureau's forecasting has been significantly enhanced. Australian disaster response frameworks have Tracy in their foundation. And there are lessons that have not been fully learned, that recur in subsequent events in ways suggesting the learning was incomplete. The treatment of vulnerable populations, inadequate information reaching non-English speaking, Aboriginal, and low-income communities, is documented in Tracy and again in subsequent disasters. The evacuation trauma, family separations, lost community cohesion, displacement never adequately addressed, recurs in the research literature. The failure to maintain institutional memory, urgency fading, preparedness atrophying, appears in every subsequent major Australian disaster. Some lessons have been learned and held. Some have been learned and forgotten, and the forgotten ones have had consequences. Number 1. Why nobody fully talks about why. Darwin was destroyed on Christmas Day 1974. The official account is well established, the cyclone documented, the death toll recorded, the evacuation celebrated, the reconstruction recognized as an achievement, the anniversary commemorated. The story exists. It is told. What is less told, less integrated into the official account, is the layer beneath the storm. The forecast that failed. The death toll that may be incomplete. The media management that shaped what Australians knew and when. The evacuation that traumatised the people it saved. The reconstruction that rebuilt a better city for a different community. The Aboriginal experience the dominant narrative does not fully contain. The psychological legacy persisting for 50 years. The lessons learned and the lessons not. None of these contradict the official account. Tracy was a disaster of extraordinary violence. The government response, for all its imperfections, was genuinely impressive. The rebuilt Darwin is a better city in physical terms than the city Tracy destroyed. These things are true. But the full truth of Cyclone Tracy, including what was managed and withheld in the days after December 25, 1974, has not been fully told. Not by the governments of the time or since, not by the commemorations, not by the mainstream narrative of Australia's worst peacetime disaster. Why does nobody fully talk about why? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is something more ordinary and persistent. The stories we tell about disasters focus on the storm, the death toll, the rescue, and the recovery. The stories about decisions made under pressure, populations not fully served, information managed, community reshaped. Those require different kind of willingness to look at what happened. Darwin is an extraordinary city. The people who survived Tracy and rebuilt it deserve everything the official account gives them. They also deserve the full account. Share this video. Subscribe. Read the research. The full story of Cyclone Tracy is available. It has been available for a long time. The reason nobody fully talks about why is not that the information does not exist. It is that the official account has never needed to include it. Until now. See you in the next one.